Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I have been looking forward to this show for a while now. I was a panelist at a conference in Chicago back in June, and I finally had the pleasure of meeting someone that I've known about forever, for a very long time, and that person is Liz Faircloth. Liz and her husband Matt live in New Jersey. They are multifamily and apartment and commercial investors. And she also has a podcast called the Real Estate Invest Her Show, which is cool. We're going to talk about that. But she's a mom, she's a runner, and she's just an all-around cool person. So welcome to the show, Liz.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this too. And I was so excited to meet you, a few months ago, because I've known of you, but it's so nice to connect and chat and meet people in person, because we've been active in this real estate investing game for a bit.
For a couple years. So I've been in business for over 20 years now, and I love getting the opportunity to have successful women on the show. I also love talking to women who work with their spouses. So I want to circle back just a little bit, Liz, and have you tell everybody how you got started, and how you and your husband built this business together.
Sure. So yeah, I was in my probably mid 20s, right out of grad school. I got my degree in social work. I wanted to be a therapist. That was my goal. And my husband was an engineer and worked with a large company to do different types of engineering. And we were just starting dating. And my brother-in-law gave me a book. I was starting to get into personal growth, and he gave me a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And my then boyfriend at the time, we were about like 6 months in dating, read it. We read it together, and we're like, wow, this is really powerful. And we talked a lot about our upbringing and where we wanted to go in life. And we just had very similar values of not wanting to work for anyone else and work for ourselves ultimately and build something together. And then there's a lot of ways to do that. Real estate's not the only way. And we started just taking courses because we started to get intrigued and started to learn about real estate. And we're like, this is a really powerful investment vehicle, right? It's something you can touch and feel versus the stock market and some other maybe investments that you can't necessarily touch and feel. So we had gone to our local DIG meeting, which is, still in operation here in the Northeast in Pennsylvania. And we educated ourselves for about a year. We were pretty inexperienced, right? Inexperienced in business, inexperienced in real estate. But we really had the goal of buying our first property within a year or so. And about a year later, after a lot of education, is 2004, we bought our first duplex. And it was right outside. My husband lived in a little town called Conshohocken. So we just started to look at the radius of around there and found a little place called right outside of Manioc called Roxborough. And it was an attached home, duplex. And we financed that by my father lent us money, $30,000 for the down payment. And I forget, I want to say it was like mid hundreds was probably the purchase price, I want to say. And then I think we had gotten a loan for the construction. It needed a little bit of rehab. It was in pretty good shape. So that was kind of like the beginning for us. We then moved to New Jersey and decided to focus on investing in our local market there. We didn't know it at the time, but that area was really booming where we actually sold the property. Insight. So, what is it, 2020, where you were like, oh, I should have known that. But it's all good. We really wanted to invest locally. For many years, we only invested locally within 30 minutes of our home, so to speak. We've changed that rule as we've evolved, but that was our rule for many years. So yeah, that's kind of how we got started. And the why behind it, both of our parents, just to get a little more personal about this, both our parents were very hardworking people. They saved a lot. They did the right things. So we didn't have any entrepreneurs or really, quite honestly, investors in our world or our immediate family. But we just saw another way. We knew both of us wanted another way, to be able to have flexibility in our life and start a family at some point, hopefully, and all the things that become really important. And live the life on your own terms. We knew we wanted that. We didn't know how to do it. We wanted it, and we knew that real estate could be a great vehicle for that.
So how long did you work in the corporate world then?
Yeah. So the same month we decided to really start a business. Like after that duplex, obviously you're not going to retire on a duplex. I hate to tell the listeners that, but you're just not. So after that kind of first experience, we decided to, one of us needed to take this on full time, so it wasn't going to be, so we really wanted one of us to be focused on this. My husband really didn't like his job. So we elected him as the forefront of the business at the time, where actually I enjoyed my work. I consulted, I worked with various companies, and I had flexibility in the work I did. So I really had a lot of the things that, were important values for me. And I knew eventually I wanted to leave it. But at the time, I really enjoyed the work I was doing. So at that moment, it was 2005. He quit his job, and then I went on to work, kind of in consulting until I had my son. Oh no, we had 2 stints at it. I worked from '05 to '08, which was a great time to quit your job, and then
Really.
it really was a great time. And then it might have been '09. It was actually '09. But it was really just economically and just, working with your spouse. We didn't do it right at that moment. It was really bad, to be honest with you. And then I ended up about a year into it, working full time with my husband. I'm like, this isn't working. So I ended up going back to my old work. My boss, was very sweet. She was like, yeah, come back. That'll be great. She was very gracious in that way. And then I ended up staying for another 3 years until 2013, till I had my son. And then I left it completely. And I have, been working in our own business, part-time with raising 2 little ones. So yeah, I mean, it was an interesting ride. I worked part-time with my husband. I worked full-time with him. I've worked, every kind of way, so strategically, and it hasn't always been easy, to be honest with you. And yeah, so.
I think it's very hard. I've talked to a number of people that work with their spouses, and I think it's important to be upfront with people. It's a learning experience, and you have to figure it out. And you think, oh, it's going to be great. Well, in reality, you usually end up with a lot of conflict and people feeling like you're in their business, or it's the people that I know that have done this successfully. They've owned that there's a problem, and they've said, okay, we really want to do this. We really want to build this business together. But how can we make our roles such that we each have our own piece?
Yep.
Is that what you all have kind of done?
Yeah. So when we had a chance to start again or try it again, we both realized the first time around, it was intense, right? We didn't build a business where it really wasn't feeding us. With that, at that point, from 2009, when we had a rental portfolio, we've had probably about 40 units. But some of them were a little over leveraged. We weren't making this great cash flow from all of them yet. So just, we weren't in the position that we were making all this rental income, and I was going to quit my job. We had enough money saved that we're like, a year later, if we're not in a position that's different, because we were doing some flipping at the time, which is a great time to flip if you had the resources to do so, which we didn't, we weren't in that position yet, and we weren't into private money just yet. So long story short, first time around, we were very much, there weren't clear roles. It wasn't a clear sense of, and I went into a business that my husband was working a few years. So, and I was kind of like, I could be a little bossy sometimes with him. So a little bit, you could do this and do that. And, what ended up happening was it didn't work. And there was money stress on our relationship. At that point, we had no children, but it was stressful. We knew we could figure it out, but it was stressful. And so the next time around, when I kind of came back to working with him in the time in 2013, and I was involved. I just wasn't involved as heavily. We knew that it was really important for me to have my own thing, because me just being a support to my husband. I mean, I'm always going to be supportive to my husband because that's a healthy marriage. But I knew I needed my own thing. I did like the Flipping Mama. I did all these different websites, and nothing kind of stuck. And Andres and I kept talking about really supporting women in this business. And that's what, the Real Estate Investor kind of podcast started, and then community, and it's become a business. We're figuring out how to potentially help women and maybe monetize a membership, or doing something kind of creative in supporting women. And that's been very, very healthy for me to have my own thing that my husband's not involved with. So that's been a recipe for me. And when I am working with him in our own business, we do have clear roles, and I'm still involved, especially on the investor relations, really, really helping in that area. And then I'm always conscious of what's working, because there are some times that I'm like, some of this administrative stuff, I need to pull myself out. We need to get somebody to do that. So I'm not talking to you 20 times a day about something. That doesn't work for us. I love talking to him, but not about tasky stuff every day and morning, noon, and night. That doesn't work for our relationship, because then it takes away from being husband and wife, dealing with our kids and all the other stuff that comes up. So we keep refining it, to be honest with you. We've been at this a long time, and I don't think, I hope, I don't think you ever get to a point where it's perfect. It's really good. We work really well together. And when we're talking about our goals and values, strategically, we do so amazing together. But the nitty gritty, tasky stuff, we can get in each other's way. And so we have to be mindful of that. And then we regroup and go, okay, let's get someone to help us with this. So it's not just me and you.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And I think the fact that you need to be able to have a conversation about it, which is where I see a lot of these business marriage partnerships break down, is there's just no communication there. So I'm in awe of people that make it work. I'll just say that. So you started out with a duplex. Did you always only do multifamily commercial type properties, or did you do any single families?
Yeah, so we did buy, single families as well. During that time that 05 to '08, we ended up buying some more multis. So we really got started in the multifamily space, and then we bought some single families. We were getting into flipping as well. We started flipping properties, and then we also bought some single families as rentals. That seemed to work. We knew that the leveraging of larger units could potentially get us to our goals faster, and you're able to leverage, right, either other people's money and energy and time. So we knew that was a path of ours. We ended up buying a commercial building, so we have one building that's solely commercial.
Okay.
Office users in our where we got our start, which is Trenton, New Jersey, and we still have a decent sized portfolio there. And that was a learning for us. We did a lot of education, but my husband's a risk taker. I'm a little more cautious than him, but I'm a risk taker in and of itself. I think I'm probably a cautious risk taker, but I still, and we were naive, and we've made it great, but it took a long time, that building and that asset of ours. Would I buy that the same, would I do that again? It hadn't given all the education, would I know, probably not.
Probably not.
But we've made it right. And we've made a really, it's actually a small business center. And so we have 10 to 15 tenants that are all different businesses, and they have shared space. And it's a really neat thing now. I'm really proud of it. And we're both proud of that building. And we're looking at getting solar on the building just to help reduce its cost. It's a pretty large building. But, you learn in the beginning, especially when you're probably a little less experienced, that you get involved with different things. And the key to this success is to become good at something and to do it over and over again. And then you can pivot and say, okay, we've gotten good at this. Now let's get involved in that. I mean, that makes sense, right? Any good business. But we did that too early on, too quickly, without really, really optimizing one strategy. So when we were getting a little smarter, we would ask the question, what are we doing well? Where are we doing well in our business? And it was really the buying the value add multis, and putting renovating the BRRRR strategy, as they say in the bigger pockets world, right? Buying and renovating, renting out,
Refinance, yeah.
But yeah, we got involved with a lot of different things. Some single families, we had a land we bought. I mean, we really did it all early on.
Wow. Yeah, I think too often people do that, and to some extent, I flipped and rehabbed, and I had some rentals, and I really didn't master one thing. They're very different strategies, and so that by the time I got to wholesaling, I was a lot smarter. And now I tell people, if you want to add wholesaling to what you do, I'm 100% on board with that, because you can build a cushion, you can pay off your rentals, but it's not really, you're not going to retire on wholesaling. You're going to always have a job. So you either have to have rentals, or you have to have some other income stream, passive income, that's more of a retirement strategy.
Yeah.
So now you only do multifamily today, is that correct?
Yeah, in terms of active buying, yes. We're really, we have a few flips that we're actually finishing up, that we're, trying to close out And not just because of the market, just because it's also the partners you're involved in,
Mm-hmm.
and the team that you have. So as you figure things out, you're like, okay, the strategy is important and the focus, but it's also the team, and some niches, if you have a great partner and a great team around it, awesome. But you can't scale when you don't maybe have that team in place or that strategy in place. So for us, we, just looking at, we've done really well with some flips, and other flips, we've had to bring a check to the table, and that's not a fun experience.
Yeah.
So, for us, in a lot of ways, flips have been a great learning experience. We've done well with many of them, but it's just not a strategy we necessarily wanted to scale and really grow and really develop like a business out of it, if that makes sense. Not like
Right, it does, because understanding flips and the whole the repair process and all of that, because you probably, I know an investor in Chicago who doesn't flip houses, but he renovates his own rentals.
yeah,
So from that perspective,
you know what you're doing.
you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
He also recently started wholesaling some deals rather than just passing on a deal that was not, they have a very strict buying criteria. And if it didn't fit that, I made the same, really, I call it a stupid mistake early on. I passed on properties instead of saying, now I'm not suggesting you say, how can I make this at a deal at any cost? But what can I do with this property to make some money? Maybe it doesn't work for me, but it would work for someone else. And I think when you're inexperienced, it's pretty common to make that mistake.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, and so, yeah, that our progression is, we did it very slowly, but we would get into like a fourplex, and then a 10 unit, and then an 18 unit. And then we really read the book. Probably this was like 2000 and, 12, 13, around there. But really, we read the book by Grant Cardone, 10 times in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very powerful book. We've always been big thinkers, but we're like, what are we doing well, and how do we kept thinking it's like this progression, like you have to only add a few units to it. But we're like, let's really 10 times this. We know multifamily, we have the experience, we know what to do, starting to build that passive income arm, and also raise money and do it with others where you're creating win-wins. And so then our next property was a 49 unit, which was a big leap for us. And that was,
Wow.
then you're really building on, putting a syndication together and doing that legally and doing that the right way, and building with other investors. And these are investors that may have 50,000, 100 grand in their IRA. So it's not like, people that, have tons and tons and tons and tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
These are regular people like you and I, and just, people who want to grow their wealth, which was really neat. And then we went from there to, larger apartment buildings, and are growing our assets more in the Southeast kind of vicinity, and not the Northeast as much. So, we started really, our criteria for buying early on was like, what's cheap, what's close.
Yeah.
That was really what we figured out. And then as we've gotten a little more seasoned, a little more knowledgeable, and it's taken us some time because we've been at this probably 15 years now, those are not the questions now, right? So it's not just what's close and affordable, but it's also what's going to give the investors that we work with the right returns they're looking for. And so we have their goals in mind as well. So they become like, they're our customers. They're who we're doing this for and with, so to speak.
So you have some property that you all own just yourselves, and then you have some that are like syndication deals, or do you do any master lease options, any things like that?
No, we've really never done that. Is that more single families?
No, that's apartment buildings. That's
Okay.
So if you think of a lease option, a master lease option is where that's another whole conversation.
Yeah.
Where you lease lease option the whole building, and then you're responsible for the tenants. And the way you make money on that is, let's say in a normal case, you wouldn't want a high vacancy rate, but you're only going to be giving that owner what he's getting now. So when you add value, you make the spread. So it's another great way to add properties. And then when the property appreciates in a couple of years, you cash out. It's a great way to buy multifamilies with no money out of your own pocket.
Got it. Okay.
So
now that makes sense. It's like a souped up version of doing it.
Yeah.
Family
home. So I know you get into a lot of rules with syndications, all the government stuff. So talk about that a little bit. Do you have some advice for somebody? You got to be very careful with that. How did you do that?
Yeah, we I actually just answered, we have a Facebook community, and a person had just said, I want to go into partnership with a few of my friends. They're going to put up the money. I'm going to look for the deals. And so it really sparked, I responded and actually went through, okay, here are your choices. So I'll break it down the way, the way I understand it. Early on, I'm one of our first private money kind of investors, and people can get lenders, which people are very familiar with. People lend you the money. There's a fixed, time frame. You're going to give them the money back plus an interest, which is where a lot of people use private money. Then there's the equity side, which is what we're talking about. And not every deal has to be a syndication. Not every deal is, and I'll explain the differences here. But equity, we've done equity early on when it was two single family home rentals. So for example, it was side by side row homes in Trenton. And I had met we had gotten tapped out. We had used our own money. We've used close family and friends, and our buying power kind of got, which you're saying there's so many other strategies we didn't really think of. We went down the path, okay, how do we raise the money for the equity and for the down money, and what have you, in the construction, and then refinance it and pull it out. So I had met a good friend of mine from from grad school, and he was in the city. I was still doing my consulting, and I said, I'm going to be in the city, love to grab a coffee. We were good friends in grad school, and we met, and he was a very successful financial planner, and he said, wow, what you're doing with real estate sounds really interesting. I'd love to do that, but I just don't have the time. So I said, well, we have the time. You gotta talk to my husband, because we're actually looking to grow, and we have the time, we have the experience, we have a track record. But in terms of really growing, in terms of that down money, we've kind of tapped our own resources because we put a lot of it already into some of the stuff we have. And he said, that's interesting. So he came down, and he was one of our first kind of partners, if you will. So the way we set that up at that time is that we started an LLC together, 50-50 partner. He put up 50 grand. And the other value of the time was that I was self-employed. I was a consultant. So I actually wasn't W-2'd, or I wasn't receiving a W-2. My husband worked for himself. So we didn't have any, we didn't look great to banks at that point.
Yeah.
We had no assets built. I mean, now we can show our personal financial statement and all that, what we own, what we have, all those sort of things. We didn't have that at that time. Like, great, what do you have on 30? They weren't too impressed with our portfolio, to be honest with you. So bank was like, wow, I want to work with you. These two are flight risks, We've always had good credit. I will say that we always had good credit, so I will say that how important that is. And we still, this day, we both have very good credit. So anyway, we went 50-50 with him. He put up 50 grand and personally guaranteed the loan, which was enormous. And we, we partnered on that deal. And then we did a bunch of projects after that. Now, the key there, so syndication, everyone always thinks is buying apartment buildings. It's not just buying apartment buildings. Syndication can literally be what we did, buying 2 single family homes. So syndication doesn't equal size of the deal necessarily. Okay. Syndication is, are people, and again, I'm not a syndication attorney, but what I understand of it, because we've done a lot of it, my husband's wrote a book on it, so we do have a bit of knowledge around this. But are they active or are they passive? So if a partner is active in the business with us, now we had weekly calls with him, he audited the books, he was active, he was not 50 grand. So right there, you disqualify. There's a few ways you can disqualify as a security, so to speak. And that was one way that you can disqualify as a security. So he was active. So as long as your partners are active, and they might be giving it, they might be putting the money up too, but that they're active, they have an active role in it, then you've legally disqualified from doing a more formal syndication. Now, as we grew, our next deal, we ended up buying about 20 units, and it was a scattered site. It was about 3 or 4 buildings. We bought a 10 unit, and then we bought a few duplexes and fourplexes. That was our first one where we actually, really did a full, hired a syndication attorney, someone who specialized in this, registered with SEC and all that good stuff. Because then we were raising funds, and these were purely passive investors.
Okay.
So when someone becomes a passive investor, like literally you're just sending them a check, they're sending you money, and they're investing with you as a partner, as an equity partner, then it becomes, there's really no way around it not being, registered as a security. And again, that time we raised $500,000, I think, of private money, and then bought that portfolio. And then we've done we've done it ever since. But you and another person can partner up, and one has a role, you have a role, they put the money up and they're both active. I think, you're in a, again, don't take me completely because I'm not an attorney, but from what I understand, you're disqualifying that need to register with the SEC.
Well, and you brought up an important point that there are different ways to partner with people. You can have purely a private money lender that gets interest, or you can have an equity partner. And I think people sometimes get a little bit confused about that, where maybe you want to explain that piece of it to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. So, people often think, that again, I think more people are familiar with the lending side, but really a person lending you the money is not a partner with you. So if you do great on the project, for example, they're great for fix and flips, so that's where we've used funding and private money in some of our fix and flips. They lend you $100,000. You have a mortgage note, if you will, in process where they're protecting the asset, and you talk about how much interest you're going to pay. At one point, we were paying some of our investors like 15%. Now it's like, we've obviously negotiated that because that's psychotic and that's almost like
gotten smarter.
Yeah, we gotten smarter, but at the time, it's probably what the money was worth. I think money's gotten cheaper, obviously, but yeah, in terms of them, it's almost like they're getting a certain return on their money. And sometimes they can get a return on that initial amount of money. And even in the last, we did this is one of the ones we did with Andressa. We did 3 new construction properties in Philadelphia. And the lender, he lended us the money out of his IRA, and it was really the down money for the construction project. We ended up getting the financing through a bank, and he got a return, I think it was 8%, like a return on his money. And then he got a 12% of the profit.
Okay.
So that's all, legally done. You put that all in terms of an agreement with that lender. And so in terms of the profit, he's become a lender. Now, we didn't put him as an equity partner in an LLC on that project because it wasn't necessary. Literally just lending you the money, and you have basically an agreed upon, restrictions on what requirements of what he's going to get, what you're going to get. But you both win on that. So that was kind of a hybrid almost. We've had other lenders say, this is the amount of money and you make what you make, and this is what I want back at the closing table. And that's where the most common approach is. That was a little more creative. The other way to do it is the equity part. Now, if somebody's coming in and becoming a partner with you, it's just like a partner in any business. So we call lenders partners, but I think we're using that term improperly because technically a partner is actually a partner legally in a business with you. So in other words, you are maybe 50-50 partners with the first gentleman. He brought 50 grand to the table. We brought our experience. We thought that was very fair that we did a 50-50. As you get into larger stuff, a lot of our splits are 30% goes to the general partner, and not just one general partner. There's usually a team. We have a team now, so everyone's getting paid. So our percent may not be 30; it could be less than that, right? But 70% goes to the passive investors. So it all depends on the way you're structuring it. But think of equity as ownership. Lending is a loan. That's all. So loan, you're going to get the money back, and a fixed interest rate, unless you get creative with you're getting some of the profit. But most of the time, you're getting that fixed interest rate. The equity, you're winning and losing together. So
I like that.
Yeah, and so that's the best way to think of it. But they're taking on the risk with you. They're also now in a limited way. As we've grown our business, the limited partners are not taking on the risk as much. The general partner really is. They're taking on the risk and those sort of things. So limited is, in essence, they're limiting their risk. But I think
one thing that you pointed out that's so important is you can kind of create this arrangement however you want within the legal limits of the law. You can have a mix, or I think when I think of private money, I think of them being private money partners because they are loaning you the money and they're trusting you to keep their money safe. So in that sense, they're a partner, but they're not a partner in the truest sense of on paper, they're a partner.
That's right.
But the thing that is so cool about real estate and these partnerships is that if you're trying to work with somebody and they say, well, I'll loan you the money, but I want this, you shouldn't just right off the bat say no. You might want to hear them out and you might want to have a little bit of negotiation like Liz just said. maybe I'll pay you a lower interest rate and then we'll pay you something on the back end, or, but there's no one way that you have to do this. There's no law that says this is the way.
No, absolutely. And the key is, protecting people's money, and that
Yes.
becomes really important. I mean, I think early on in certain things, you learn as you grow in this business. And, I think we've gotten more conservative over the years, if nothing else, which is a good thing, being fiscally very conservative. And so that's a really key thing. And also, do you trust the people you're doing business with? I mean, that's really comes down to, and things don't always go as planned as, or what the pro forma says. So you have to trust the people you're lending your money or doing business with or partnering with, or fill in the blank. They're going to do what's right if things don't go plans there? That's the key. And are they going anywhere? I mean, we've been at this a long time. We're not, and some of these people, I'm like, I'm buying an apartment building. I'm like, how long have you been investing? I went to a course last month. I'm like, can you explain, like, for example, the difference, like I just said, whatever it is. No, I'm not as familiar with that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I think everyone's an investor right now. Everyone thinks they know everything, and we certainly don't know everything, but you got to work with people and feel comfortable with what they know. And have they been around? I think that's important.
I think, we talked about this earlier. At the end of the day, you live or die by your reputation. And you have to know that real estate is not a perfect science. So there's always going to be some risk. I don't care what anybody says. There is no risk-free deal. And you said you've brought a check to a closing before. Folks, that's a reality. Sometimes things go terribly sideways in a rehab. So just know that you have to be careful. You have to be, I think I'm with you on you have to take a risk, but conservative risk, a calculated risk. So I really want to dive into one thing though. This is always the burning question being a marketer. Where do you get your deals? And I get asked this all the time for multifamilies.
It's a good question. When we started, we were doing, I know you speak so well about this, having like multiple strategies, and that's important now, or even when we started. But we were, we never became wholesalers, but we would connect with a lot of wholesalers. So early on, especially in our local market, local brokers, local wholesalers, we never took on wholesaling ourselves. We knew that much. Let's not take on another thing. We were already spread and involved in a lot of things. So we knew that much, that we didn't, and that's a business in and of itself. So we had really became strategically aligned with a couple key wholesalers in our kind of local market. As we did more business and we got a multifamily closed, the broker on that, and they're a national broker, they started bringing us deals. Because the biggest thing with these commercial brokers, especially the ones that are, marketing these larger projects, they want to know if you're going to close, and everyone wants to buy multifamily right now. Everyone calls these brokers and go, I want to buy, get in line. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to buy property, especially in that space, because it's a very hot kind of niche right now, especially. So I would say, start building those relationships with commercial brokers who specialize in the size and type of building you want to buy. And, and when I say commercial, when you get larger than those 5 units and, you're getting into 10 units, 20, they're considered commercial. So, from a kind of financing perspective, obviously there's people living there, so it's residential, but in the sense of financing. So those are the kinds of brokers that are going to have access to those. Your normal realtor, not normal, your residential realtor, I should say, has access to maybe small multis to maybe up to 15, 20 units. But beyond there, they're probably not going to specialize in like the 50 or, even larger. So the key is to start building relationships if you want to go bigger with those commercial brokers who are really like go-getters. They're aggressive. They're talking to owners, because they're going out talking to owners saying, hey, it's a great time to sell. So they're trying to position themselves to have opportunities to share with, kind of people that can close. So after we closed that 10 unit, we became someone who a team that can close and trusted in that way. So then we got a larger deal. Okay, these people can close. They'll get it done. So that the 49 unit, and then our next project, which is 198 unit, came from the same broker because we just developed a relationship with him. And it wasn't, he was from Philly, but he had a connection to a North Carolina, another brokerage. And it just became this relationship where he ended up, going down there with us to check it out and all that kind of stuff. So since then we've kind of expanded in your market to Kentucky, and we've had to develop new relationships with brokers.
Mm-hmm.
And then property management companies tend to be a great lead generation for off market or even on market deals, because they're always talking to owners, and usually dissatisfied owners who are just done dealing with the asset, whatever size asset that is. They're a great, especially having a property management company that specializes in the size building that you're looking to buy. Obviously, if you're looking for, 100 unit and you're talking to someone who just manages duplexes, that may not work. But either or, you want to find a property management company that has, experience in the size building you want or looking for. And they're great lead generation, especially if you build a relationship with them. Not just, call them when you need something, but meet with them, have lunch with them, build that relationship with them. So really the brokers and property management companies have been, our lead source. We actually have someone who specializes in looking for deals right now. That's all he does. And he's an analyst. I mean, we were doing it, but we're like, okay, you need to be able to underwrite these deals quickly. Is this going to pass the initial litmus test? Things are moving very fast. So if you're like, let me get back to you in a month.
Yeah, no.
It's not going to happen. So you need to be on it. And some people are just they're very good with the numbers. So they can quickly know what your criteria is. And we like, and knowing what areas you're looking for. We like kind of stable working class, working force housing. We don't like areas that are on the top 10 hottest market.
Right.
We like those areas that are like a half hour from there. That's usually a great, for us, at least what works for us and our criteria.
So you are in Lexington, Kentucky. Is that what I heard you say? So how did you pick Lexington?
We when we started to look, we were in North Carolina, and we have a building there. And North Carolina is a great market. And we were in a town called Fayetteville, which is has the Army base and has that sort of market, and that's good because there's a lot of people to pull from. But as we've grown in our business and we've looked at our assets, job diversity has become even more important. Mm-hmm. In other words, are there various corporate kind of headquarters growing here, or is it just one or two? And so doing the research there, and I wasn't on the forefront of the research, but I've come to understand it. And when I was getting familiar with it too, is that it has a very strong diversity of jobs and just diversity of where to pull strong tenants from, because that's what you're thinking about. If you're buying a larger asset, are you going to be able to pull people to be good? There's only so many people to go after if it's in a market that have that many, are there businesses coming in? Or is there things happening here that people want to be a part of? But yeah, the job growth, job diversity, and just the stability of the market from what we saw, again, beyond all the other details and things, seem to be really strong. And something that we really were looking for. The Northeast has gotten overdone and overpriced. So we bought a lot in the Northeast when we started. And then as we continued on, we started raising private money. We couldn't make the numbers work. We just couldn't make the returns work for our investors. So if you have your own cash, awesome. Maybe you keep buying in Princeton, New Jersey. That's great. But that wasn't what our strategy was. We're like, okay, we just can't make these numbers work anymore. So that's what made us go more into like the PA area, and now, a little more southeast. Just more.
Kentucky is a very stable place to buy. They have a lot of good industry, a lot of major companies. And even during the recession, it was never like one of your California, Phoenix, and all of those that experienced a hyper growth. Yep. We certainly had that crash here, but to a much, much lesser degree than it happened most other places around the country.
Yeah, and then once you study a market and you like it, you like what you see, you go down there. The other key is then, okay, how do I leverage if I have a property management team I really like and respect? We're growing here. How do we do more? And then you start to one thing we've done, I don't know if folks have done this when you're an out-of-state investor. Great idea to do is to actually put a note up on Meetup or Bigger Pockets. Hey, we're gonna put a pop-up happy hour together. in town. We're investors like you, just want to meet local people. We've always done that when we've gone to North Carolina or Kentucky. And it's a really great strategy to, number one, meet local investors. And just, it doesn't mean that, 90 million people have to come, but people love connecting with other investors usually, especially different regions, different areas. So we've put it out there and, you never know who you meet. We met someone in North Carolina that ended up a realtor who was looking to get into multifamily. We had our property management company and we have someone who's looking over the building, but we just wanted like local feet on the street. Like what we can do here, we can't do there. We can't just drive to the property, when we want to,
right.
As much as we could with local assets. So this person was hired to do that. We pay him a weekly fee. They go by the building once a week or twice a week. I don't know exactly. And they walk around the building. They just look around in a nice way, just to kind of keep an eye on it in a very, obviously they can't go through all the units. They're not doing that necessarily, but just to make sure things, it's interesting once you start to see weeds growing and then you start to see the grass really high. It usually indicates other situations happening potentially. So we really wanted those eyes on the building. More than we can get down there. And we get down there quite a bit, but, you can't get down there every week. So, but yeah, the little pop-up meetups or like BP, let's meet other investors events. And that doesn't cost people anything. Just like happy hour is a really great strategy to meet local people where you're trying to invest.
That's a great idea. And I expect to hear from you the next time you're in Kentucky.
Yeah. And what's funny is that I physically been to everything except our stuff in Kentucky. So I'm always in charge of the kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and we have support, but we got to build our support up a little more. And so we're planning a trip though this fall. So
okay, great.
I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah. And I'll definitely let you know. Cause I'm like, he's taken a lot of videos and I did part of like, some of this decisions and things of that sort, but I haven't physically been there.
Yeah. About an hour away, 80 miles, something like that. Yeah, so it's not too bad.
I've heard rave reviews, so I'm very excited about getting there at some point.
Well, the University of Kentucky is there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to talk about lifestyle a little bit. How do you find this balance, or do you find it with small children? I had small children, and then I was very actively involved with my granddaughter who just went to college last week. It's kind of funny having empty nest syndrome a second time around. It's like, but how do you make it work? And I was looking over your website, and one of my favorite apps is the Calm app. I noticed you had that on your site.
Yeah.
How do you or do you have a vision for what this perfect lifestyle looks like, where you integrate your kids and you have peace? And have you nailed that down?
I don't know if I can answer yes, because we really, that was the reason we started a podcast, and it's just interesting. I think I've really been so curious about it because I've yearned for that. Right. And I love being a mom. And I worked really hard for many years. My husband was the forefront of our business. I was helping and working full time. And I didn't think I wanted kids. And then something shifted in me and I'm like, no, I do want kids. And it's just another story for another day. And then I had my son, and then this whole new role of being mom came up. And then I had my daughter, who's 2 and they're 2 and 5. They take in a right way, they take a lot of my energy and time because of, they're my kids and they're young, and my daughter's learning to, go pee-pee on the potty and all that good stuff right now. So that's what I'm in the throes of. But yeah, I think what's interesting though, is that I knew I didn't want to just stay home full time and not have anything professionally to do. That's never really been in my blood. However, I wanted this like hybrid approach, and I knew that I wanted to work on a business and grow it and be home with my kids. So I've created like a part-time approach for me now. What ends up happening though is I say yes to a lot of things and then I take more on. So what really is part-time to some people is now full-time, and I'm taking nighttime or morning time to kind of accomplish everything. Here's what I could say. I do love exercise. I do exercise at least 3 times a week still. Some weeks are better than others, but 3 to 4 times is usually my goal. I love running. I don't do it all the time, but it really helps me get mentally, kind of, I always come back like feeling really good, and there's endorphins and all the chemical things that are happening in your brain. I do start my day. I've dabbled in gone on and off with meditation, knowing it's really important, knowing it's really critical. And I've been pretty consistent for the last, last several months, where I'll get up, I read a little reading. I like to pray as well. I'm a spiritual, trying to really grow spiritually. I read my little daily reading, and then I put on a meditation for 10 minutes. Calm is a great one. I also felt like I really wanted to get connected spiritually. So I found some on, YouTube, just YouTube it, spiritual meditations. And I've gotten some. I'm more like a 10-minute meditation kind of person. Yeah. I'd love to grow more, but that's what I can handle right now. 10 minutes is perfect. And then I also have created like a mantra, like a whole, like kind of visualization for myself, some of the goals that we're trying to achieve, some of the big goals, and just some finishing a couple projects that are taking longer than they should. And also I want to do a TED Talk and meet Oprah. Like all kinds of things are in this little visualization. And then I read it, and then I see it happening. I see a lot of the things happening. So if it's a project that's been taking longer, or something that's we're frustrated with in our business, I see a goodness happening. I just try to see the good in all of it, and it all unraveling in a good way, in a kind of perfect way, or whatever perfect means, but just in a strong kind of peaceful way. And then I start my day, and I feel like I'm a little fueled with goodness. But I have to tell you, Sharon, I had a breakthrough recently about this, because I was starting my day this way, and what I was finding is that I was going through every second of my life. So I'm working part-time, I'm only working till 3, then I'm going to pick up the kids and taking my son to and it's just like all of us, right? We have these segments of our life. So what I was finding, and then what I need to do a better job of, is, and I wasn't taking a lot of time to maybe read a book that wasn't business or had a growth.
Yes, I know.
And I'm not saying I'm doing this great right now, but I'm going to make a goal that like a half hour before I go get my kids, or 20 minutes before I get my kids, I'm going to start reading something just for me.
Just for you.
Just for me. And something that I enjoy. And I do like personal growth books, but something that just has no agenda to it.
Like a novel.
And, and even just like a personal story, or something that I feel like is for me. And, I think as women, we have to do that for ourselves. And it may look different for someone else. They may want to, paint or do something with, I don't have those skills. I don't, that's not my passion, but yeah, I think it's an ever evolving kind of process for me. But what I've come to realize is that being mindful and just stopping before you go to segment to segment to segment to segment of your life, you'll be more present to where you are, and you feel a little more peaceful in that way. And I wasn't doing that. I was literally rushing, and then you kind of leave your desk a mess and the to-do list. And then I'm like, how you doing? And, I'm talking to my kids, and my husband needs me, and I need to support him, and all that good stuff. So segments and shifting in a more mindful way, and doing things that fuel your tank, whatever that is, and then reading a book for me is going to be really, and it sounds so easy to do, but that 20 minutes I could be responding to emails.
Yeah, it is about habits, and I think it's about self-care, and women in general you're great at giving self-care to everybody but yourself. So it's hard. And I've got the same struggle. One of my kids pointed out to me that, this novel has been sitting over here forever, but I see you reading business books or responding to emails. And that is a habit. Like, I've got to get off my phone at nights. Yeah. It's a bad habit. You're not present. Yep. And very few people are going to die if you don't look at your email at 9:30 at night. It's rarely going to happen.
It's those critical times. Like last night I just closed my eyes. I ended up falling asleep because it's easy for me to fall asleep. But I'm like, I have so many things to do. I wanted to have like an hour of just responding to emails. I'm like, I just don't have it in me. I'll get up in the morning, and I was fresh in the morning, and I was excited about the day. But at nighttime, I agree. It's like, what works for you? How do you unwind? And things are done in their due time. And I'm a pretty ambitious person, so I kind of expect to get things done like, a lot faster sometimes. But with kids and the balancing act, I just know that, it's going to take some time, and that's okay. And it's more than okay. It's where you are. And, I love doing the things I'm doing with my kids too. And on a Tuesday I can take them to the park, and, that's really, quite honestly, the most important stuff.
Yeah, it is the most important stuff. We're talking about books. You like books. I like books. Do you have a favorite book, or one that changed your life or changed your business? Do you have one?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of books that have been really impactful. And I think about the early ones I read. And, I think a lot about Awaken the Giant Within by Robert.
I love that.
Yeah, by
Yes.
Anthony Robbins and obviously Tony Robbins. I mean, he's a huge, obviously, public speaker and does amazing weekends and is just an amazing person and what he's done for people. But that book was phenomenal. And I don't know if many people even know he's written a book because it's not his thing. He doesn't write a bunch of books. I mean, a few, especially the one that's recent, financial. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was like a prerequisite to like living my life and, how to make meaning of things and the questions we ask ourselves. And as I say it and as I talk about it, I'm like, that's one I should be reading again. Think and Grow Rich is one I read over and over again.
I love that book.
And that's just like a core book. I'm reading one on imaging where it's like that's part of my morning routine I've been trying to do is read 5 pages of a book. I may not read a whole, chapter, but just a few pages makes me feel like I'm reading. And imaging, I'm really back into this book on forget the name of it, but it's on imaging and visualizing. I love that idea. So that's the one book I'd say, Waking the Giant Within.
Yeah, visualizing is important, and I think it kind of goes with for me, it has to go with the calm morning routine, or it just doesn't get done at night. I'll say it's going to get done, but it doesn't get done. Well, I want to kind of ask you one final question, and this one is really kind of hard to wrap your brain around. But do you have a goal out there where you will finally say we finally made it, or is that an ever evolving thing for you and Matt?
That's an interesting question. Meaning, like, I think in talking because my husband and I talk a lot about where we are, where we want to go, what's working, what's not working, and try to tweak. It's sometimes not easy, but, continually having those conversations with each other. And, and I have these conversations with Andressa too. They're really only 2 business partners I have in essence. One's my husband's, one's my friend. I think the thing is building a lifestyle that really you're excited by, and we are. I mean, I have a lifestyle right now that I am very grateful for. I feel very blessed, and we've worked really hard for it too. It wasn't just like I woke up one day and, people handed me these properties and people handed us this. Like really, we've really worked for everything we have and are involved in. But I think as we continue on, I want to create the same lifestyle and help more people, inspire more people. I think I'm doing that. I think we are doing that. So, I don't know if there's a place to get to. I think the continually refining the lifestyle you want and the lifestyle that helps you achieve what works for you, whether it's more peace or more happiness but I am happy. I mean, I'm generally a very happy person and I'm pretty positive as well. But the days I'm not, or the moments I'm not, because it's not all roses and sunshine, I'm grateful for what I do have. And I think that's the trap, is if you keep striving, because we want to grow, we want to strive. And I don't think we want like a million units or anything like that. I mean, we really want to build a business and build a, really portfolio that we can be proud of and that we can take care of and that we can put the right people in place to help us all achieve the goals we're looking to do. But it all should support your lifestyle. And what do you really want to create? And I think we're building towards that. I really do. There's lots of moments that I'm very grateful for. And, when things aren't exactly the way I want them, right? Maybe it's financially or wherever, you feel like you are, where you want to go. I just stop and become really grateful, and appreciative of the path and what we're up to. So.
Well, that's good. That's great advice. Where can people reach you? Where can they find your podcast? Tell people, I'm sure people are going to want to reach out to you.
Sure. Yeah. So our podcast, and you can kind of find us more about the community and the meetups that we're growing across the country. And we have about 14 meetups, investor meetups, where we're just, helping women connect with each other and everything. But yeah, that's the real estate invest her. It's HER.com. And that's really, the kind of women investor kind of movement that we've, trying to be part of and create and help women get what they need. And then in terms of active real estate work and things of that sort, my husband and I, the work we've done is derosagroup.com. It's DEROSA group.com. And we have a pretty active YouTube page on that side of our business where I have some videos, but that's really my husband's thing, where he puts up videos twice a week and answers questions. And we have a growing channel there. Just you put in DeRosa Group and YouTube. So, but yeah,
Cool.
that's the kind of two things that we have, where I'm more the podcast stuff and he's more the YouTube guy.
Okay. Well, Liz, thanks so very much for coming on the show. I've been looking forward to it, and it was just great fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you and appreciate the time.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in today. I think that's all for today. I will see you next time, same place, and bye for now.